Hello, Schumer here. Welcome to today's vlog. I want to continue yesterday's subject, press bias, because there have been some developments since yesterday that I want to talk about, or maybe I should just say new information. I'm going to lead into it, though, with a couple of smaller items, and then I'll get to the part about press bias. The first item is a news story that is actually good news for those who are waiting for Congress to pass a stimulus package to help all these people that are out of work and all these companies that are in real trouble because they can't do business. As you probably know by now, especially if you watched my vlog yesterday because I discussed it, that there was almost a deal between the Democrats and the Republicans in the Senate. Then Nancy Pelosi came in, added a whole bunch of extraneous, non-germane elements to what was an almost finished bill. She had the House write its own bill. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but the important news that I want to give you right now, Nancy Pelosi signals surrender on relief bill just a day after going full Leroy Jenkins. I'll have to confess that I don't know who Leroy Jenkins is, so I don't quite understand the reference, but the main point is that she said, I'll just read the article, give you a couple quotes from the article. If this is true, it's welcome news. Nancy Pelosi, just a day after going full Leroy Jenkins on the negotiations over the Wuhan virus relief bill, is now signaling that the House will pass whatever the Senate sends them. This follows Chuck Schumer reversing course last night and announcing he expects a deal done today as well. They are very close to a deal. As I said, they were before Nancy Pelosi gummed up the works. It looks like they got a lot of heat, the Democrats did, from all these extraneous, non-germane requirements that Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats added to the stimulus package. Well, you know what? Let me give you a quote or a little video of Ted Cruz explaining why they thought they could do this. Watch.
Listen to the men and women in your states. Don't give in to the games. You know, most of the Democratic senators say they don't even know what their side wants. That it's just their leadership that's willing to hold the American people hostage for unrelated political partisan objectives. And by the way, one of the reasons I think Senate Democrats are so willing to engage in this is they expect the media to be utterly complicit.
What Ted Cruz just said was what I was about to say. That's why I just put up the video instead. The Democrats thought they could get away with this, and that's why I say thank God for the internet and for alternative media, for conservative media, because otherwise they might have gotten away with it because, well, you'll see why in a minute. I want to now give you a couple of quotes and a list from an article that will show you what the Democrats were trying to get away with, what they thought they could get away with adding to this stimulus bill. And then I will show you where the press bias part comes in. And bear with me because this is going to be an extensive list. GOP details Pelosi's $2.5 trillion, quote, socialist wish list, unquote, in coronavirus aid package. House Republicans on Monday night offered a detailed critique of what they called House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's, quote, socialist wish list, unquote, in House Democrats' $2.5 trillion proposal for responding to the coronavirus outbreak. Quote, Speaker Pelosi unveiled legislation aimed at exploiting the COVID-19 public health crisis by attempting to force the inclusion of a socialist wish list of policies that have nothing to do with the public health and economic emergency, unquote, said House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, Louisiana Republican. Now, this is the list that Scalise and the GOP put together. Bear with me. This is quite a list. The items, and I don't even know if this is all of the items, but items that the Democrats wanted to put in that stimulus bill that was just supposed to send money to workers and businesses affected by the coronavirus epidemic, nullifies the White House executive orders on federal collective bargaining, and codifies taxpayer-funded union official time. Requires a labor union representative on every airline's board of directors. Multi-employer pension bailout lacking needed reforms. Permanently raises the minimum wage to $15 for any business that receives federal aid for COVID-19. Cancels all debt owed by the U.S. Postal Service to the Treasury. Requires all airlines that receive assistance to offset carbon emissions for domestic flights by 2025. Includes a $1 billion, quote, cash for clunkers, unquote, airplane program where the Transportation Department buys fuel-inefficient planes from airlines in exchange for agreeing to buy new ones. Includes expansive new tax credit for solar and wind energy. Mandates how states must run elections, including the nationalization of ballot harvesting, requiring early voting, same-day registration, and no excuse vote by mail. Puts states at risk of costly litigation if they are unable to implement these stringent mandates ahead of the 2020 election. Requires the Homeland Security Department to automatically extend visas and work authorizations expiring within the next year, including those with deferred action for childhood arrivals and temporary protected status, for an amount of time equal to their prior visa authorization or status. Limits Customs and Border Patrol's ability to shut down processing centers if there is a health crisis on the border, and requires CBP to assure the timely adjudication of asylum applications. Would allow certain funding to go to sanctuary cities. Permanent changes to who can serve on corporate boards of directors for companies that receive assistance for payroll and operating costs. Mandatory disclosure on supply chain management. Requires board diversity disclosures for all publicly traded companies. Ban on all federal rulemaking, including non-COVID-19 proposals, extends 30 days after emergency, quote, in an attempt to delay the current administration from promulgating actions House Democrats disagree with, unquote. Virtually rewrites the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program policy with no reference to COVID-19, and permanently disallows rulemaking pertaining to work requirements and eligibility. Permanent expansion of Obamacare entitlements, quote, putting the American taxpayer on the hook for endless and unchecked health insurance spending, and would remove all incentives for insurers to reduce the cost of health insurance, unquote. Again, I don't know if that is a whole list, but that is a lot. What the heck does any of that have to do with helping the people who are out of work and the companies who are suffering business problems because of COVID-19, because of coronavirus or the Chinese virus? Fortunately, it looks like all that is taken out, and we now get to what I want to talk about: press bias. Two news stories The first one from the New York Times. This is a New York Times opinion piece. The conservative bailout stalled, and it's Mitch McConnell's fault. The Times is talking about the stimulus package being stuck in the Senate because of the addition of all those items that I just listed for you. The Times is saying it's Mitch McConnell's fault. Now listen to this. Senator Mitch McConnell of Kentucky failed to do his job this weekend. As the economy spiraled downward, Mr. McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, said he would produce a bipartisan bailout bill authorizing an infusion of desperately needed aid. Instead, Mr. McConnell emerged on Sunday evening with a bill that would provide a lot of help for corporate executives and shareholders and not nearly enough for American workers. It would let the Treasury Department hand out hundreds of billions of dollars to corporations, potentially including businesses owned by President Trump, without requiring a binding commitment to preserve jobs and wages. And the bailouts could remain secret for 6 months. Story number 2, Mnuchin, Schumer optimistic on coronavirus stimulus package, say deal is close. This refers to the news item I gave you when I started this vlog, that it looks like all that other junk that the Democrats have put in is being set aside because of the heat that they got from the media. But which media, which is the question I will answer in a second. I'm not going to quote from the article. I am going to quote from a tweet from Donald Trump included in that article. Republicans had a deal until Nancy Pelosi rode into town from her extended vacation. The Democrats want the virus to win. They are asking for things that have nothing to do with our great workers or companies. They want open borders and Green New Deal. Republicans shouldn't agree! Exclamation point. That is the only reference in those 2 articles of that long list I gave you. Senator McConnell was on the Senate floor, as I said in an earlier vlog, hopping mad. He was on the Senate floor detailing some of these things that the Democrats wanted to put in the bill, but making it clear that that was the problem. That was the dispute. All these extraneous things that the Democrats were trying to put in the bill in obedience to Rahm Emanuel's famous statement, never let a crisis go to waste. So they figured because this is a must-pass bill, they could sneak all this other garbage into it. McConnell made it very clear that was the issue. But you have that opinion piece from the Times saying that no, McConnell wanted to help corporations and he didn't want to help workers. The main point is that neither of these articles mention not one of those specific items that I listed. And it's clear why, because it would hurt the Democrats. It would make them look really bad. It would be very negative to the Democrats. Well, it has been, because the GOP put together a list and because conservative media reported it, but the liberal media did not. They made it look like it was, as the editorial said in the Times, that it was Mitch McConnell's fault. They deliberately left all that stuff out. I mentioned in my earlier vlog that I actually took Journalism 101, and one of the first things we learned in that course was about the gatekeeper function. There are 2 offenses that can be pegged to a biased media. There are offenses of commission and there are offenses of omission. An offense of commission is fake news, reporting false news, reporting ostensible facts that are not facts at all. That is an offense of commission. But there is also something that we learned called the gatekeeper function. The gatekeeper function is, as it sounds, you have a metaphorical gate where the news organization decides what news is going to be allowed through the gate into the newspaper or the TV report or whatever the medium is. In other words, it is just as bad not to report something at all as it is to report something that is false, something that never happened. That's what we're talking about here, an offense of omission, misuse of the gatekeeper function, keeping out news that we should not know because it would hurt Democrats. That's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comments section below the video, as well as any questions you might have, suggestions for future topics. I would love to get more subscribers, so subscribe, and finally come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again, and until I do see all of you again, bye.